Gen Z is knowingly committing fraud, and I think it's because of the economy. And I have an article showing right here, and it's actually saying that Gen Z is actually committing fraud with subscriptions and with return on credit cards because they don't feel that that's um, really bad for them or bad for the companies. So what they're doing is that they're just saying in this article, let's go over it, what they're saying. And it's actually quite disturbing because they're saying that a survey from Intuit found that 73% of Zoomers feel that the current economic environment has made it more challenging to save money. They're struggling with increased housing costs, student loan, and rising prices, and everyday purchases like groceries, all while wages have stagnated. So, what they're trying to do now is just say, hey, you know, I can't pay for all of this, so let's just go and commit fraud. And how do they commit it? Well, in this report, they're basically saying that they're just charging back credit cards, saying they didn't get the item when they actually did. They're sharing passwords and all that because they don't think that that is a bad thing for them. So this is really crazy because when I look at some other stats that I've actually pulled up here, so let's look at these stats. So when I have 70, so how does this all matter, right? So when I'm looking at why this all matters is because Gen Z is actually struggling more than they actually tell us, right? So 31% of hiring managers say they would avoid hiring Gen Zers and would prefer hire a millennial or somebody older, right? Hiring managers say during the recruitment process, Gen Zs ask for too much money, lack of communication skills, and don't seem engaged, right? During interviews, hiring managers have found that Gen Z candidates don't dress appropriately and struggle with eye contact. Hiring managers also say Gen Z exhibit entitlement and are too difficult to manage. 30% of hiring managers say they've had to fire a Gen Z within within a month of their start date. So that means if you're a Gen Z right now and you have your first month, there's a 30% chance that you're actually going to be let go. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, man, this is really not looking good for Gen Zers. But I also think that this is not looking very good for the US economy. And this brings me to another crazy topic. So I'm here in Switzerland right now, in Zurich, right? So this is all in Zurich. I'm here for 2 weeks. So you guys will see me a lot more in Switzerland for the next 2 weeks, a lot more videos. So what I've noticed is that here the news is so different. So when I'm trying to look at US news or anything else, it is so filtered. So for me to find these articles, I couldn't even find them. I've had to had Allison actually send me some articles from the US to actually see this. Because here it is all great in the US. The US is can't do really wrong. The only thing that I found that's kind of negative is that Biden had a little debacle with the debate, and they're asking questions of, hey, should a 80-year-old or however old he is still be running for office? That's it. So that is a huge problem because you can't get the facts straight. And if I'd lived here, and this is kind of why I moved to the United States because it seemed so great, everything was so, they never portrayed it in a bad light, but I knew that it wasn't all that great, right? So when I'm looking at the US economy, and I know it because, I work there, and I'm looking at what I'm seeing here, it is completely opposite. It's like 180 flop, right? So now I'm thinking, how is that so different from here to where, I live, right? So in Las Vegas. So I think the US has marketing down. If you need anything, if you need something, like the US has it, like no doubt about it. And when you're looking at, moving to places, the US has everything, all possibilities. And I think that gives a false sense of hope to all these people that are trying to come illegally across the borders because they see that exact same news as I do in Switzerland, right? they're saying, oh my gosh, there's so many job openings, they can't fill all the jobs. Those were the news sources that I've seen. But the actuality is that it's so different when you're actually there that you can't find jobs. Finding a 5% unemployment rate in California, they didn't even share these articles, right? So then I'm like, how is that all possible? And then I come to, oh, Google's an American company, right? And all these, Yahoo, here we also have Yahoo, but I'll try to use the English one so you guys can see the language. But when you look at the German sites, try to get some ideas, there's just not that much that they would ever say negatively, or that the US is in some kind of, recession or something else. They just wouldn't dare to say anything like it. And when I'm looking at the Gen Z in America, that article that they're struggling, here, you don't see that. Here, with the Gen Zers, nothing. You can't find an article about stats, numbers, anything like that, because I don't know. You guys let me know why in Europe you can't see these numbers. And it's really interesting because I feel like there's two ways of approaching all these scenarios. There's like the China way, where you just tell your people what you want them to believe, right? And then there's the American way, where we just flood the news. We just flood the market with so many different news, and you can pick and choose what you kind of want, and you can then kind of say, hey, you know, I'm a I'm a Republican, so I listen to this news. Oh, I'm a Democrat, I listen to this news. Or I'm an independent and I listen to this news. And when you flood the market with so much news, it's somewhere right in the middle, right? And I have not come to the conclusion yet. What is better? If the government just says this is what you got to believe in, and like, oh, this is false, or you just flood it and say you can believe whatever you want to believe. At the end of the day, it comes down to be the exact same same scenario, right? You don't know what to believe. And that's kind of it, right? You can't pick and choose. You can't say what you can't figure it out, because, numbers lie. And it's not that numbers lie, it's just that the statistics are so crazy and made up. And you can actually, when you learn about statistics, you know how skewed they are, because you can mess with the numbers, sample sizes, and all that kind of stuff. So it's just crazy. And back to the Gen Z, right? What I make this video about, how bad it actually is that we as consumers are subsidizing these Gen Zers trying to get ahead in life. And now with all these layoffs, is something severely wrong when you have to lay people off in the first 30 days. I don't know what it is, but you need more training, you need to educate them better, or they're just, something needs to happen so that they can not be fired in the first 30 days. I don't know if it's onboarding or whatnot, but you can't be that you fire somebody in the first 30 days. And this also brought me up to another idea, thinking, how many people lie on their resumes? Because I found, like when you type that in the US, here I couldn't find anything. But in the US, I remember the stats were crazy. How many, I think it was like in millennials, like 22% lied on their resumes. It's absolutely crazy. And when you think about what else people lied about, like about positions and all that, how is this going to be beneficial to the future? Because I've gotten people in my comment section that says, "Oh, I lie on every resume. I just make shit up." And this is this is not okay. This is handicapping or making a disadvantage for other people that actually got these qualifications. But you lie on your resume and you send it out. And I've actually also been guilty of that. It's not like I'm not one of these. I've also put in some numbers or some stats that weren't 100% accurate, but I could, like kind of make them accurate, right? And so let me know in the comments below if you guys lied on your resume before, because I sure did, and it's not great. And I'd have to admit that it's not the greatest cause, right? To do that. But now I'm looking at it like, okay, so many people lie. And how many of these Gen Zers for the 30 days that got fired got caught lying, and then they did a background check or they did something and they couldn't figure it out and they fired them? Because once you get hired, I think you're in. They're not going to try to find stuff to fire you unless there's something like really, really not right. And when there's something really, really not right, you got to let these people go, right? So if you find out that you're like, um, I went to Harvard and then it was Harvard spelled differently, and the company actually thinks you went to the Harvard, but you went to a whole nother school that's kind of like Harvard, and you kind of make stuff up. It's kind of stupid example, but something like it, where you're like, hey, I went to this or this school, and then it kind of comes out that you've lied about that. Those are kind of easy to prove nowadays, I think. It's just if the hiring manager and the company actually wants to figure it out. So, interesting scenarios. And yeah, when you get laid off like that, man, what an ego blow that is. Because what are you going to put on your resume now? That you've never gotten a job? Because I also feel like if you're going to get fired from a company, then they'll, you know, companies talk, right? I mean, people know people. So what I mean by that is like, so you get fired from this company, and then they're like, oh, John Doe, got fired because he lied on his resume. And then if you want to work at a competitor, then they know that you lied on your resume, right? And I actually know somebody that lied on a resume and actually didn't get the job because because they lied. But they didn't lie about qualifications. They lied about the location that they're actually in. And I thought that that wasn't an issue because if you're willing to relocate, you can then, you know, um, kind of, just move there and you'd be all good. But if you can't do that because you lied and they found out and they said, oh, you submitted an application and you're not in that location, then you're kind of done. And then they, rescinded or redacted the offer. And yeah, horrible, right? So don't lie on your resume. Let me know what you think about all this. And yeah, this is from Switzerland and it's actually like 70 out. So this is it for the video. I'm actually going to, since I'm in Switzerland, whenever I end the video, I'm going to have some clips that I filmed about the Swiss life, bakeries and all that, just so you guys can see. You don't need to watch it. I'll tell you when the video's done. But I have some other stuff in here. So this is kind of where I grew up, lived on this block. And yeah, this is, we're going to go to a bakery right now to get breakfast for my family. So we are right here, and I will see you guys on the inside and we'll see what we're going to get. So I was just in the store and you saw I got a few shots, but one huge difference is that people in the US love when you film. Most people say, oh yeah, put me on, put me on, put me on, put me on YouTube, put me on, just give me a shout out, give my store a shout out. Here, people are like, no filming, don't want to be filmed. So huge cultural differences. And yeah, so did that for the first day. Since I'm filming every day, let me know what you guys want to see and I will make it happen.